What is
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How are we all doing? We are back. Week number 1 of league play of Slipstream's ECC. This is Division 1.1. First matchup, Code Red versus Ascension Chronos. I am Solar. I'm joined in the booth by Mikey.
Absolutely. Is it still week 1? When you said week 1, then I'm like, are you sure? It does not feel like week 1. This has been the longest week of my life. But
yeah, we do get those. It has been an interesting year for that. You do lose track of the days, but if you're going off the stream title alone, then we can trust that it is indeed week 1, season 7 now of ECC.
Already in season 7.
How they grow up, how time flies by. But we do have this first matchup coming from Division 1.1, the same very division that I myself am in as well. So this is already a very interesting one, but early start in, you can see on your screens there, ladies and gentlemen, the predictions very heavily in favor of Ascension Chronos, as was the vote in the chat. So it's looking rough for Code Red already, but this is their chance. It's their platform to prove that they can defy the odds and cause a bit of an upset here.
Yeah, I think Code Red really, to be honest, can. It's always a possibility. We all know what Rocket League is like, but I think Ascension being the brand that Ascension is, and being in Division 1 already, it's like, okay, how many rosters do Ascension have? I feel like all I'm seeing all the time is Ascension with this team or Ascension with that team. If Ascension have picked up this team, that admittedly, I don't know a lot about these teams, but if Ascension have picked up this team, it must be a good roster.
Yeah, you would like to think so. I mean, I've personally played against that Chronos roster quite a few times just in scrims. They are a very good team, very, very quick to play on offense. They can hold a strong defensive line as well. And the one that is sort of really to watch out for them is Per. Per can really change up a game as games go on. Code Red, personally, again, I don't know terribly much about themselves, but I am very familiar with Dutch Dark. I've known him, or of him at the very least, played with him a couple of times as well, just over the past maybe year or so, and he can really sort of fill in that third man role very, very well. So, as we say, coming in this one, Code Red, they've got it up against them. No one can really sort of see them winning this, going based off of the vote in the chat and our predictions there as part of the production team. But, you know, to have that go against them, it kind of takes the pressure off them. It puts more of the pressure on Chronos. And both teams, week number 1 of ECC, they're going to want to get a good start to this season number 7. The best way to do that, of course, is with a sweep, but any sort of win result is a positive start.
Yeah, I think for me, if you've got all the predictions against you, this is their time to stand up and prove themselves and turn around and be like, no, actually, you guys don't have faith with me, but I'm going to prove each and every person wrong today. And I think that there's a strong possibility of that happening if Ascension Chronos don't play to the absolute best of their ability, so to speak.
Absolutely. It does just give them that sort of edge off of things, whereas with Ascension and Chronos now, technically having a little bit of pressure on them, but we will, of course, see how they go on to deal with that. It's not doom and gloom for them, and it is, of course, a best of 5. So it is a long stretch where even if one team sort of builds up an early lead, it's not straight away over, and you're going to have serious issues from there. You have to take it game by game, minute by minute, and just change things up the way that it goes. But we are expecting, obviously, this roster of Steve, Falcon, Dutch Dark to line up. They may bring in Kimonos, depending on, sort of availability. We don't exactly know, but Ascension Chronos come in with 2 subs there as well. Another 2 players, again, they're very rotational when it comes to playing them in scrims. So they've got a familiarity between those 5 players, and they can sort of interchange them if and where they need. So it is likely to work for them in that case. We have all gone against Code Red, and Chronos for me too hot to handle. I do feel like, personally, I did say it was going to be a 3-1 win to Chronos. I can see Code Red taking this game, but it's all about building this momentum up right through the season, because each division has 10 teams. You have to play them all as you go throughout the season, and getting a good start, getting a couple of wins under your belt early on can make a serious difference. Because as soon as you end up down the bottom of that sort of division after the first maybe 3-4 weeks, it can be very, very hard to climb your way back up.
Yeah, I think what this team really needs is they need to kickstart it. They need to hit it right off the bat, because it's Division 1's a real tough division to be in as it is. And if you're Code Red and you're already not necessarily the best team in the division, you have to get that momentum off the bat and just get that advantage going into the next game and things. And I think the thing for them is that they need to get off quick, and they need to be really quick about it. And to be honest, I think you can kind of worry about complacency from the Ascension Chronos roster. You know, we've seen it throughout this week and throughout the games. Is that when a team seems to think that, like, okay, we've got the lead, all of a sudden the tides just turn and they just throw it around. So we need to be really careful about Ascension Chronos getting complacent with them and just letting them, just leaving the space open and letting them just get past them. And I think it's a very strong possibility that Code Red can upset the odds here. Will we see it? Not too sure about it though.
Absolutely, and coming out of the stream where we revealed the seeding and what teams were going to be in what divisions and things like that, Code Red did actually come out above Ascension Chronos. So Code Red do have an average MMR of 1700 coming in. Ascension Chronos has 1674, but it is Code Red 5 and Chronos 6. So both these teams really do have a lot to prove. They're not quite in that top sort of 3-4 teams, along with, you know, Glasgow Storm, Nox Esports, Talent, and Trinitas Esports Remix, but they are just out of there, and they do have something to play for. They will want to make the playoffs, but, you know, being in that sort of middle area where you're not expected quite to make playoffs, but you're not also expected to sort of be demoted, relegated out of the division either after that one. So it can really be vital to them to get going, hit the ground running, and really take it from there. But as we know, Rocket League, very momentum based, both mid-series and throughout a season. As soon as you start picking that little bit up, things get easier, they feel more comfortable, they feel faster. But as soon as things sort of don't start going right, it can seriously snowball for you. So hugely momentum-based esport, and what better way to start it with a win in game number 1 and your first series. So it'll be very, very interesting to see how these two teams actually come out against each other from the off. Will it be cautious? Will it be played safe? Or will they just go all guns blazing?
Absolutely. I think for this team now, it's a case of get that. You know, if I'm Code Red and I'm looking at this scenario now, I'm looking at, right, you've got a team facing you that are extremely difficult. You have to have really solid communication and a really solid defensive play. I think if they play it, they could play it potentially quite slow at the beginning, and play it defensively and just look for them little gaps. Obviously, against a team like Ascension Chronos, we're not necessarily going to see a ton of mistakes, I don't think. But Code Red have to be able to capitalize on every single mistake. And although you know it's not a best of one, they've got to be able to do that fairly quickly and get into it very, very quickly. And speaking of getting into it, we are now going to get underway with game number 1 as we go into the kickoff. Steve with the kickoff right there, and Oh, Per with the demo. On how do you even say that name? Chronos. We're gonna go with that and see how that goes.
It does appear that Ascension and Chronos are playing with one of the aforementioned subs we were talking about. It's not Sky, Per, and Ryan for this one. Nullai is actually taking Ryan's place. So it'll be interesting to see how this one goes. But it is looking like a slightly more positive start here for Code Red. They do have a shot on goal. As do Chronos, they've got one for themselves as well. But both teams still a little bit tentative to start.
Absolutely, you're seeing a little bit of nerves from both teams by the looks of it. We just see Abumason right into the goal. Easy save for Steve though, and it's now getting back into the Ascension Chronos area. Unfortunately, they've got to switch it up a little bit here to try and get it past them. We're going to see an in-air attempt, so to speak. Unable to do much with it though, as Sky just with the block. And even as they try and pass it in, a great pass there. I'm not too sure who that was from. But look, mistake after mistake there, as we just see 3 or 4 people just completely miss the ball. And if you're Ascension Chronos, you've just seen that team make that mistake. How do you capitalize on that instantly?
Sometimes you do just have to trust that your opponents are going to hit the ball. And when that doesn't come off, it can indeed be frustrating for them. But, 2 mistakes there like that with, Code Red a little bit far off the pace to not capitalize on it. It's understandable in the early stages of this series, but should those mistakes keep happening from Ascension Chronos, then you've really got to question why Code Red aren't pushing up as high as they maybe should be. But, it's early stages, they're still feeling each other out here, just getting an understanding of how to approach each other and really who will take first blood.
Yeah, I completely agree. As we see, I think that was Per coming off the wall there. As Steve's going to try and cross that into the box. He's going for the little dunk, hits the crossbar, unable to do much with that one. Good save there from Nulai. I'm going to call him Nulai. That's what we're going with. Pretty sure I'm just making up names at this point. As a shot comes off there from Falcon, but Skybeat's not going to let anything happen to that. We're just seeing it.
There again. There's a few chances here that have really come and gone for Code Red. They've looked the livelier of the two, going for 6 shots to their name now. Looking a little bit awkward on defense there. Save from Falcon. They really turned that one away. And for all the praising I was about to give Code Red, they looked a little bit shaky on defense. They've had more chances going forward, but just unable to quite force them home. Looking the livelier of the two, as I said, but still waiting on a goal.
A great cross there from Chronos, as we're going to see Per now trying to dribble it off the wall, but unfortunately runs out of boost. Unable to do much with that. Steph just gets it right past Nulai. Easy for him. And we're just looking to see these little gaps opening up that we're not really seeing, but a little mistake there could cost them, but a great pass back from Falcon. As we see Steve going for that cross. A mistake there from Sky, ends up with it still in the box, but a great clear there from Code Red.
Chances really coming here, but neither team have found a way through just yet. Some strong defensive lines, and to start with, both teams really were looking a little bit shaky. They've tightened things up. If there's any way that either team's going to break through here, it needs to be a little bit of a physical play. They need to start disrupting their opponent's defensive rotations, because everything's far too comfortable defensively for both teams to really see any goals actually come out. That's a huge mistake on the backboard from 2 players in Ascension Chronos. Nulai and Sky both severely missing that one, and Steve will get the first goal very late on in game 1.
As we saw just then, the one thing that we were saying was they needed to get that game 1 under their belt fairly quickly, and it has taken them a while to sort of break through that barrier. but capitalizing on their mistakes that we did say that we weren't going to be able to see from this team, knowing how good this team are. But great play from... Oh, the Sky goes to block that. Looking like game number 1 is going to go the way of Code Red.
And it does feel like Ascension Chronos really sort of threw that away. They were comfortable for lengthy parts of that. They did succumb to 9 shots, but they turned away a fair few. And as a result, they kept themselves very much in that. They didn't have much to shout about going forward, but there was nothing dire for them. Just one defensive mistake, a rotational error from them there. 2 players at the front post, neither make connection, and Steve putting it home into an empty net. It should not have ended up in a goal of that manner because they were looking comfortable on defense. One mistake, though, was all it took. Code Red take game number 1 in less than convincing fashion, but they didn't particularly make any mistakes to suggest that they shouldn't have won it.
Absolutely, but you can also see there that Per didn't necessarily do anything pretty spectacular. Just sort of, you can just see it on the points there, just 90 points for Per and only 2 shots. So maybe it's going to need Per to step it up in this next game as we go into game number 2, Code Red versus Ascension Chronos. Who have you got for game number 2?
From the showing that we saw there in game number 1, it does look like Code Red are the more offensive of the 2 teams here, and they've really shown that they can put Chronos under a lot of pressure. They didn't make many defensive mistakes there either, so better from them. And Ascension Chronos, they didn't look bad, don't get me wrong, but just a couple of mistakes that really let them down, one resulting in a goal. It's got to be Code Red for me here in game 2. They just look sharper, they look faster, they look more offensively minded, but that is a big mistake, and it will be a goal, and Ascension Chronos will go 1-0 up. The infield from Sky, Per drawing 2 players towards it. Sky on his way back out in rotation, turns it in. It's 1-0 Chronos, but it wasn't exactly pretty.
That's a very unfortunate double commit there that results in a goal for Ascension Chronos, but I literally just commented on Per with a great assist there as he meant for that to go in the goal, but just as quickly, the equaliser. Look at this. Just right over the player's head into the top corner. There's nothing doing that scenario, you just have to be a little bit quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Chronos gets there very, very quickly. No lie, he's in an awkward spot. He's on the front post there in the end, but credit to Chronos there. He's got round that ball. Air roll shot, top left-hand corner. Very nice shot, but should really be positioned better on defense there, no lie. But it's still 1-1, still 4 minutes 20 to be played, so plenty of time to make up for a mistake like that.
Absolutely, and it looks like, ooh, just...
Oh, no!
That's unfortunate for that team.
Per's got to be turning that in at the near post. He's rushed his opportunity there, comes back out. Should be 2-1 Ascension Chronos, but they have to do their defensive duties instead.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for Ascension Chronos, really. We're seeing a lot slower pace sort of from them, and we're seeing a lot more mistakes now. As you see Steve go in for that cross into the box, but Per easily just using it off the backboard. That looked a very, very dangerous play there from the boys in blue. As Chronos just goes with the shot. Easy save there for Per. Per definitely having a much better game this game compared to last game, though.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been far more involved already, despite that near post miss. He has got an assist for himself at the very least. Looking a lot better in game 2 as he looks to get that. Oh my goodness, that could well have been a beautiful aerial pinch there. But it's ended up wide of the mark, but no lie with an air dribble. Turned away again.
Absolutely a great team play there, but a number of saves again from Code Red, and they're doing really well to withstand this pressure. 2 minutes 43 to go, but they need to do more than just withstand it, because they have got to get another goal. So we see a boomer there from her all the way over to the other side of the area as they're going to challenge each other in the air, but Chronos just beats that with ease as Falcon able to just pause it and censor it there, but Sky is very well read from him as he goes for that block. But nonetheless, off that, Falcon is just going to dink that in the net, and it is as you were seeing, Ascension Chronos falling apart here.
Yeah, really struggling to get that ball clear. The pressure from Code Red ending up just being too much. It comes from a miss from Nulli in the air. It leaves Sky awkward, and then they're all just static by the time that shot from Falcon comes in. No momentum to carry them towards the ball. It was always going to be a goal. It's 2-1 Code Red. Ascension Chronos, for starters, really should be leading 3-2, potentially even 3-1. Had they not made defensive errors, but it is going to be 3-1 Code Red. There's no one at home there for Ascension Chronos this time around. Sky caught out of position. The last man rushing back, nowhere to be seen. It was Nulli there. Rotations breaking down.
Yeah, Ascension Chronos absolutely falling apart here. 3-1 in favour of Code Red as per with a great pass back to Sky. Chronos are going to block that though and send it right back towards the net as he's going for the cross, and a great cross from Chronos, unfortunately unable to turn that into any kind of offense, but a great pass back, but Per with an insane block right there as Falcon's going to go back and try to get it back in the area, hopefully do something with that. It's coming down as Chronos is going for that dunk and absolutely gets that. A great pass from Falcon into an aerial play from Chronos, able to get that, and a great pinch with Steve right there actually. And a great dunk into the top corner.
Absolutely, but again, Ascension Chronos just not doing the rotational duties. There's no reason for Per to be on that front post. In the end, it leaves. Not the easiest of shots for Chronos. He still has to get round the ball and turn it on target. But as soon as it is on target, there's no doubt about that going in. Per nowhere near it. Ascension Chronos really have fallen apart rotation. It was a good opener for them. They got an early lead, but since then have just struggled over and over again to find the right places to be.
Yeah, I think the one thing that we're seeing from Code Red as they go and hit the crossbar once again right there is they have got a great rotation. They are getting every block possible, and they are just reading things really, really well. They're not necessarily doing anything ridiculously special, but they're just able to get back as soon as they've pretty much hit it, as soon as the play's over, getting back into that defensive position, and they're just like a solid wall at the moment. So we see Falcon going for a little pass there, but an easy block for Per as Steve is going to try and send it back, but Steve absolutely sends it away from the net with a pass back to Falcon as a great team play there. And actually, I don't think that the second player there, I don't think Steve actually touched that. Great pass back to the player, and then Falcon just with a very easy shot into the net. The rotation clearly off for Ascension Chronos.
Very much so. Nulli just caught in an awkward spot there. Didn't know whether to come or whether to go. Just ends up in no man's land. 5-1 Code Red, 23 seconds remaining. It's fair to say game number 2 is dead and buried. Chronos now looking for a reverse sweep here in week number 1. And it's very, very good here for Code Red.
Absolutely. Code Red just need to keep doing what they're doing and keep on with these really defensive plays, and just at the moment just need to waste time to get that counter down even. Do you think we're going to see a reverse sweep now from Ascension Chronos, or are we going to get the clean sweep from Code Red?
I mean, the stats there say it all. A total of 14 shots from Code Red, 7 from Ascension Chronos, and Chronos just look off it at the moment. Aside from one goal and a potential chance as well with the air dribble from Per, I think it was, that looked to pinch it in with Nulli, if I remember correctly. They've really not offered enough going forward. Defensively, their rotations are all over the place. And I have to say, for me, this is going to be a sweep for Code Red, going against all predictions here. You guys trusted us in that chat. We all called Chronos. You guys went with it, and it looks like we are going to be all wrong. Code Red in the driving seat quite severely.
Now do you see why every game, every series so far since casting, I have gone with the underdog story. I've gone with the team that aren't necessarily the favourites, and the one time I go with the favourites, they let me down. Gonna start predicting the underdog story all over again, as we're gonna get in to the third game of Code Red versus Ascension Chronos, and it is 2-0 to Code Red.
2-0 up, looking very, very comfortable here as well. They've had the majority of the offensive pressure right throughout this series, or want to end this one in a sweep as well, get their evening over nice and early, enjoy their Sundays, maybe even tune in to the stream and catch up on what's happening in Division 2 after this one. But they'll want to wrap this up nice and quick, not give Ascension Chronos any momentum, any belief that they can get back in this series.
Absolutely, as we see Steve going for an aerial pass to Sky, and unable to do much with that, really. Fortunate for him, but Falcon's just going to block that as it goes into the centre, and a pass there to Chronos. Chronos goes for the shot, unfortunately, just hits left of the goal against the backboard. Falcon's going to go for an insane aerial play now. It went trying to be a Houdini, didn't exactly do much with it, unfortunately for him, as he's heading back towards the other goal. And we're just seeing a bit of back and forth action now, where it's looking very likely that either team can score, but we are seeing Code Red do seem to be the better team right now.
Yeah, keeping that offensive pressure, that momentum that they had in game number 1 and game number 2, carrying that forward here into game 3. They'll want to get the opener here, just to give themselves that little bit of cushion, that little bit of resilience to work with. And if they can get the first goal, it could really beat Chronos down, who have seriously struggled in the past 10 minutes now, coming up on 11 and a half. I've only had one goal in this series, and it was very early on in game number 2. Otherwise, it has totally been a Code Red show, and it looks to be another one as that just goes high and wide. It was a save from her. Falcon was looking to slam that one home.
Absolutely, we're seeing it from Ascension Chronos now, where they're not getting any pressure on, but what a save from her into Nulai. And there's just no pressure. There is no pressure. They are all just sat in the net, and realistically, they need... What do you do if you're them? They need to just sort of stop and get that pressure on. They can't just keep withstanding this onslaught of offense. As Per with a great deflection there.
They really do. They need to break out, and the issue is that they are carrying it forward with one man, but the other two are so scared about losing this game and ultimately the series that one of the players that should be pushing up with the first man in possession of the ball is hanging back in defense. They don't want to concede a goal. They're so concerned about doing so that they're passing up any and every opportunity to put on any offensive pressure, and that is killing them here. It's really, really bad, and it's detrimental in the end to their series. They're not going to win in this kind of form.
Yeah, you gotta give Code Red a hell of a lot of credit though, because they are just keeping on the onslaught. The offense is just keeping on coming. Their rotation is really well, you know, they're keeping up with them demos. They're not even allowing them to get out of the box at this point, as we see a setup there. And is that going to result in a goal? Yes, it is. A great setup from Falcon off the backboard, right into the path of Steve, who can just slot it in the bottom left-hand side of the goal.
Yeah, lovely little finish there from Steve. It's all from Falcon. He baits in Per, gets a huge flick high onto the crossbar. In the end, it's easy for Falcon as he catches the last man out. It's 1-0 Code Red, exactly where they'll want to be. Ascension Chronos looking down and out. It looks like they've accepted defeat already. 1:30 remaining, down only by a goal that could well become 2 if they are not careful.
Absolutely. If you're Ascension Chronos right now, oh, and as we're just about to say, what would they have to do to get a goal? They get that goal as Per with a great pass, keeping us unable to do much, and then Nulai just slots it into the net. 1-1. Are we seeing a comeback from Ascension Chronos? Hopefully that'll be the mental reset that they need.
got a goal back, but it's still a long way to go. They got a little bit fortunate in the end. Chronos just low on boost, having to avoid a bump, trying to get the clear. Played it right into the path of Nolai, and Nolai was there to finish. It's a lucky break for Ascension Chronos, and they need to take that in their stride. They've got to go back. They've brought the game back level. They need to pile on pressure. They need to put Code Red under a bit of pressure of their own, because if they leave Code Red to carry on the way they have been right throughout this series, then eventually they will just succumb to it.
Absolutely. If you want Ascension Chronos, you need to stop it, and you need to stop it very, very quickly, because you've only got 36 seconds left to go. And then we're into overtime, and it's currently 1-1. It's going to go for that ground.
Oh, that is a huge bump.
Block that was.
Wow, that was very, very smart there from Falcon to clear Per out. Lovely slow down play from Steve as well. 2-1 Code Red.
Absolutely an amazing play there from Code Red. Just able to make sure that Per, really nothing you can do. You just got yeeted out of the way. But, oh, as we see right there, Sky very close to getting a goal.
Oh, there we go. There's the equalizer. Per turning that one in. A last-ditch touch from Nolai just before he got demoed infield. Per with the finish. We are level again. And Chronos finally putting Code Red under a bit of pressure, and it's paying off for them.
Absolutely. Ascension Chronos have some life. Are we going to see a come?
Oh,
just
my.
stopped. And what's Falcon going to do here? Is Falcon unable to do much with it, because Sky's going to block that as he tries to pass it back into the middle. Again, unable to do much. It's going to come back down, and we are in to overtime. 2-2, game number 3. Code Red with the advantage here. Let's see if Ascension Chronos can start the comeback. A great little flick there from Chronos. Unable to do much with it, though, as it goes straight back into the middle, as Falcon's just going to send it into the middle, and Chronos going to pass it down.
Oh, what a drop from Chronos. That is beautiful. Look at the placement of that. Draws 2 up right in front of Steve. Easy finish in the end, but that is brilliant from Chronos.
Code Red. What was the one thing we said before thinking? If they wanted to prove everybody wrong, they have to do it right now, and that is the one thing they have done. Absolutely brilliant play at the end there. Look at Steve, how many shots and goals he had there. Insane, as Code Red take a clean sweep, 3-0. Ascension Chronos unable to do much. They really tried in the end to pick it up. Unfortunately for them, unable to do much.
Yeah, very, very unfortunate there. They just struggled to find their rotations. When they eventually did, game number 3, they looked a lot better. They just, were struggling to clear their lines, and eventually just too much for them to handle the pressure of Code Red at the very least. And it's a clean sweep for them. Very, very well played. But Chronos have a lot to look at there. They'll want to sit down, look back over those replays, because it wasn't just a matter of Code Red being better. In the end, Ascension Chronos just kind of beat themselves there as well. There was a lot of rotational issues in game 1 and game number 2. Really cleaned it up in game 3, but in the end, it was like they were afraid to push forward. And when they did actually push forward, they got 2 goals out of it, and the second goal is the one that's most notable out of that, where Sky is very, very far forward. He's very close to Nolai there, but as soon as Nolai gets the pass off, Sky first to react, slams it home. We're all level. Late on, it takes it to overtime. That's what Chronos can do if they have a little bit of belief in themselves and they go forward. They're not worried about conceding goals. Oh, if we concede a goal here, that could be it, series over. They pushed forward. They realized we need a goal, otherwise that's it. And when they had that belief in themselves to get that goal, they could do it. But in game 3, while the defensive rotations were better, the offensive rotations were not. And when the first man was carrying that ball out, because there were times that weren't just sort of banging the ball away, giving possession, they were trying to take it down, they were trying to control it, slow it down, not lose possession. But the first man is carrying that ball away. The second man is so slow to move out of defense. There's no support, and they just end up back on defense again. So they looked better in game 3, but they'll want to go back and really look at those replays, because game 1, game 2, defensive rotation was poor, but game 3, it was the offensive rotation that really let them down. There wasn't such a vast difference in quality there. It was just Chronos kind of beating themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're definitely going to be kicking themselves after that series, because by the time that they woke up, so to speak, they woke up way too late to do anything about it. And it's one of them where there isn't much. If you're that team and you're sat there and it is just coming at you, you can't just have one person going for it, because if it gets past that one person, it's coming straight back to you and you're still sat there in defense. 2 of you in defense. Yeah, it might be a good defensive strategy every now and then, but when you're playing Rocket League and you need to be getting them goals, there's nothing you can do, because it's just a constant onslaught of offense from the opposition team.
Exactly, and eventually that does just break you down, and we saw some physical plays out of Code Red, and that then did break them down. They took boost, they bumped, they demoed, and that made it a lot harder for Chronos to break out. And they just needed to sort of find that clear, that spot downfield, just to relieve that little bit of pressure. Unfortunately, in that scenario, you do give up possession, but it gives you time to breathe. You can pick up boost, you can reset yourself. The best way that you can do it is if you can connect a couple of passes on your way out, and you can very quickly turn that into a counter-attack, a goal-scoring opportunity. That's not always an option that you can use. It is good to look for it, but when you can't, sometimes you do just need to get that big clear into a bit of space, just to give yourself that little bit of breathing room. Pick up that 100 boost. If it's not there, drive round, pick up 3 small pads. 36 is plenty of boost. You can get to the ceiling with 40, so getting a 4th pad is even better. And just making use of that space and time for that little bit longer to just reset yourself. And even if you do end up back on defense, it's not such a panic fest where you're running out of boost and everything is like a last-ditch touch. And as soon as you make that touch, you're out of boost again. If you can get it clear, then it just makes it a little bit easier to deal with, and you can wait for that counter-attacking opportunity, which Chronos kind of tried to do, but when they did go on that counter-attack, as I said before, there was no support for the first man. So there were positives to take from the way they changed up playing from game 2 to game 3, but there's still a lot for them to work on. And they were playing with a sub as well. It wasn't, of course, the main roster, but as I've said before, I've scrimmed them quite a few times, and they very regularly switch players in and out. So they should really be familiar with themselves and with each other. But it's a 3-0 sweep. It's not a good start for Chronos. It's a very good start for Code Red in week number 1, but it's a long season. There's still plenty of time for Chronos to get back into it. It's only week number 1, so they're not down and out. Playoffs isn't automatically now out of sight, but they'll want to improve on the issues they had. Otherwise, it will start to snowball.
Absolutely, and I think it doesn't help when you're playing with the sub and not necessarily the main roster, because you're not going to be as fluid as you would be with the main roster. And I think one of their issues was that it's almost as if they didn't know who was supposed to go for it at certain times. So maybe it is just a case of they aren't necessarily as familiar with each other as they should be. So it could just be a case of, over time, if they practice more with that sub, it could come a little bit better, so to speak. And although you know, you've got a 3-0 sweep against a team that you really should be beating, it isn't necessarily the end of the world. Okay, we had a pretty bad start to the season, but now's the time to sit down, look through that and be like, okay, what went wrong? What was it? What was the specific issues? And you know, we saw one of the Ascension Chronos managers in the chat saying that like they were in a bad mood and didn't necessarily have the best communication. And here's the thing with that. When you're competing at a level and when you're playing Rocket, you can't necessarily have that. Even if you are in a bad mood, you've just got to be able to put that aside and be like, okay, it's time to get the job done. And I think the more that they play, the more they get used to each other, and the more that they blend, so to speak, they should hopefully improve on that. And I'm hoping in the coming weeks of ECC, we'll see an improvement from them if they play with that sub again.
Absolutely, yeah, and they will want to bounce back, but Code Red, very, very strong start there with the sweep. They will move up to 1-0 for the start. 100% winning percentage as well is a very good start, only conceding 3 goals in that one as well, whilst putting in a fair more. So they'll be very, very happy with that one. And coming in as 5th seed to this conference, it's a great start for them. A win over 6th seed as well is even better because they are, in theory, your closest competitors from there, but a few good teams to go on and play after that. And the one that, for me, really to watch out for in that conference is Glasgow Storm. Very, very good team, although I do believe that it is to my understanding that 2 of them are allegedly heavy 2s mains as opposed to, you know, your standard 3v3 play style, but very, very good players and ones to watch out for. But, you know, Code Red showed what they're capable of. They seem like a very cohesive unit. There weren't very many rotational errors for them. They can apply a lot of pressure as well, and they can find each other. And there really does seem to be that sort of synergy with the players, most notably sort of in game 3 there, where Steve had slowed it down and Falcon had gone for a bump on Per. The other one being the overtime goal, the one that won the series for them. That drop down was brilliant, and it was just seeing that trust. He could have dropped that down, and Steve would have been like, "Oh no, that's too much. I'm too close to this. I'm still waiting on the other man to rotate back. I can't push this." But there was an element of trust there that really shows that these guys work well together, and from there they have just gone on and won it. And Code Red, for me, very, very good team, and they could possibly go on and win it. You know, at least make playoffs. But good, tough teams ahead of them, but potentially, you know, one to watch out for.
Yeah, I think they're very much sort of that underdog team that you wouldn't necessarily expect to be the best in the whole division. But moving forward into the coming weeks and the next few games and things, you do have a huge opportunity against some strong teams. You know, if you want to improve, you've got to be playing against them better people. So what this could be is that team, the more that they play together, the better that they're gonna be, because they're gonna gel. And you spoke about trust a minute ago. They're gonna have that level of trust that the other teams didn't necessarily have, so to speak. Within this division, you've got recognized talent. You've got Majestics, Glasgow Storm, Cosmos. Even it's very much not an easy division, and you would know yourself. You do compete in this. You compete in this division. So if you're here now, what's your mindset going into a game against them potentially?
In a game against them, you've got to be prepared to have to play a defensive game. It's all about managing your boost to the best of your abilities. And Nitrox may not like me calling out for this, but that's something that he may necessarily struggle with. I personally feel like I am quite good at managing my boost. I'm quite comfortable with low boosts as well. You've really got to to have faith that you can make that touch, that you can get to that ball with the amount of boost that you've got. You have to expect to play a defensive game against a team with that much ability to apply pressure, to have that trust in each other, and just try and catch them on the counter-attack. If you can pin them back, if you can just utterly outclass them, great. But if it's a close game and they're coming at you the way they did against Chronos, you have to be prepared to play that defensive game. Watch your rotations, have a man on the backboard, have a man back post, someone upfield ready for a pass when the ball comes out to you, and build a counter-attack from there. So be prepared to play that defensive game, have good boost management, and just trust in your teammates to make the touches necessary, and hopefully you can build something forward, catch them on the counter-attack, get a couple of goals in, and just sit back and defend it, because they will come at you. But if you can keep them out, watch that physicality from them, then it does become a lot easier to deal with that Code Red team.
Yeah, I think that was one of the issues that I did sort of see with the Ascension Chronos roster, was that every time I seemed to look at them, they were just out of boost, and they didn't have the trust for the team. They didn't have that communication, that gel well, which kind of, if you put everything together, kind of resulted in a little bit of a difficult sort of situation where you can't necessarily do anything. It's really hard if you don't trust your teammates and you don't have the right boost. You can't do any of these Houdini plays that everybody wants to see, and you can't. It's really tough when you're going against a roster that has gelled really well, that has, that is really good at managing their boost, that were literally like a solid wall, and it was a constant sort of rotation. And it felt like, for me, Code Red wasn't necessarily. They weren't doing anything necessarily spectacularly. It was just, what they were doing was very simple, it was very to the point, and it was very effective. And I think more than anything, even as much as we all went against them, I think they went in confident. And I think I spoke about this before the game, was that would we see the complacency from Ascension, but they really had that, because they were very slow. They weren't that methodical. It didn't feel like there were many plays being made. It felt like every player was sort of playing on their own, so to speak. Whereas with Code Red, they were just methodical. They knew what they were doing. They were playing as a team, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could see that from them. They were very, very good. And as I say, very much one to watch as this season goes on. Well done to Code Red for that 3-0 sweep. Commiserations there. Of course, Ascension Chronos as well. We will be going to the drawing board and coming back stronger next week. At least we hope to see of them. And if they want to scrim myself and Nip Chalks again throughout the week, I'm sure just give Nip a message, and we can see if we can work through that issues with them. We don't want to help them too much since they are in our conference. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, we will take a short break. And when we come back, we will have that Division 2 series coming up. You see on your screens at the moment, E-Dream versus RC Pluto. That is it from me for this evening. But Mikey will be back, and he will be joined by Creolix as well. So don't go anywhere. Grab yourselves a quick snack, a quick drink, maybe a breath of fresh air, maybe a cigarette if that is your preference. And when we come back, we will have that Division 2 series. But other than that, that is good night from me, ladies and gentlemen, and enjoy your evenings.